Hi! Location choice is quick and easy. It's as simple as jumping on an airplane, flying to Tenerife, and that's it. See you in the next chapter. Sorry, what? What do you mean, finding somebody else to do those videos? Okay, let's talk about locations. Locations can make or break your story. So choosing the right location is one of the most important aspects of making your video a success. In the past, I've done myself quite some effort on trying to find locations that were topically related to the video we were shooting. For a Schumann CD, I traveled last year to the Schumann house in Zwickau. And as you saw in an earlier example, I filmed a video about the Diabelli variations in the Beethoven house in Mödling near Vienna. Having a topically related house as a backdrop might be nice, but it doesn't work for every project, obviously. One of the first things that comes up when planning a location is distance and time. Finding a place and a time where you and I could physically meet for the shoot is often quite complicated. At the time of shooting this video, I'm living in Bielefeld, in Germany. To most of my shoots I go by car, since I have a lot of equipment to bring. Sometimes people are actually surprised by how much equipment this actually includes. It is a selection of all these things and maybe even a 14-foot camera jib and a large mic stand that I don't keep around here. Think about that before you think that it would be convenient for you if I just flew over to you. In our quest to find the best possible locations, I've been traveling all over Europe. I've driven as far as Cardiff in Wales in one day, or to Budapest on another. By ferry I've even been to Scotland and to Latvia. Realistically speaking, I can reach the southwest of France, northern Italy, the east of Poland, southern Scandinavia and West England, all within a day's drive. And if I can combine several shoots into one trip, I can even travel further. So as you see, I'm willing and able to spend hours and hours on a highway to come to the best possible location for your video. Also, if the location demands it, I will fly, even if that can be expensive with so much sensitive equipment. But as you might be able to understand, it would be often easier and cheaper to have you fly into a place where I can drive to than the other way around. After having made several, let's call them underwhelming trips, which might have been convenient for the artists because they just happened to be around the area, but took place in unattractive, small and meaningless locations, we decided in conjunction with my colleagues at Odradek that I, and for that matter also my colleague Tommaso, our photographer, won't be traveling across half of Europe only to be filming on a small music school stage or a cramped living room. Making this video has to be a joint effort, and so if you cannot find a good location in your area that is related to the story, I will be on the lookout myself. I do have a network of various locations nearby where I live, and also I can and will be looking at relevant places within my range, which means basically half of Europe. But if you cannot find a great location near you, we expect you to travel for the video shoot as well. I have to say that in my experience, traveling for the shoot usually makes everybody involved a bit more focused. If the shoot takes place right at your doorstep, there is a tendency to treat it as something in between and be careless about it. This is disrespectful towards everybody involved, and since we're in this as a team, I count on your understanding in this matter. So, what makes a good location then? It is hard to generalize, but first and foremost, it has to fit the story. If it's topically related, good. If the story is moody, so should be the location. Do we need to see you playing your instrument? That might determine the choice of location already a lot, especially if you play piano or, God forbid, the organ. Are we telling a grand story or an intimate story? Classic or modern? If we need to film interviews, we need to know about the noise level in that location. If it's going to be noisy, it will be hard to record proper sound. Outside locations in most countries are risky because we don't know about the weather. One of the most important factors is light. Some locations have lots of natural light. These can work fine, but it depends on the time of the year. If we go to such a place in Northern Europe in the middle of winter, we might have only 4 or 5 hours where the light is strong enough to illuminate the place enough before it changes and disappears. The same place in summer could give us 12 to 14 hours of great light. If we need to mix natural and artificial light, we might get ugly mixed lighting, which is best to avoid. And some locations have lighting installations which can be a great way to shape the light constantly throughout the day. While lighting is a rather technical aspect and I don't want to bother you with too many details, controlling the light is one of the most time-consuming and important things on location. If the lighting is bad, the video is going to look bad. In a perfect world, we can find a location with a constant lighting situation that allows us to film throughout the day in many different angles with minor adjustments. But that is rather rare. Another factor is accessibility. Since I will be arriving by car, either my own or a rental car, because even if I fly in, I will have to get all this stuff somehow to the location. And I will have lots of equipment to load and unload. It is important to not lose much time trying afterwards to find a space to park my car. A location in the center of London might be visually nice, but is a logistics nightmare. And time searching for a parking spot is lost time on the shooting day. A slightly more remote location can be a lot easier for these things. Speaking of time, we need a whole day for the shoot, meaning from whenever we start in the morning till 6 or 8 in the evening or even longer. Don't make any other appointments for the day and don't think you can make it in between. The video shoot demands your whole attention on that day. Otherwise, the final result is going to suffer. On the other hand, if you come up with a story that needs 2 days of shooting, we can try to make it happen if the story is worth it. As I said, I'll gladly go the extra mile. But don't think that 2 days of half attention make for 1 day of full attention. Video shoots that happen on the go while you're doing something else usually turn out to be very unsatisfying experiences for everybody involved, including yourself. Location scouting, therefore, is very important. In most cases, I will ask you to send me photos of a location, if it's nearby you, where it's important for me to see as many of the technical things I talked about as possible. So it could very well be that you will have to go to that location once to take some photos yourself to send them to me. The lighting situation, the flexibility of the space for changing setups, possible instruments, but also whether there are disturbing factors in the room that we can or cannot get rid of. If you make photos with the above mentioned aspects in mind, those photos will definitely be more useful for me than if you haven't ever thought of those aspects. The more information I have about the location beforehand, the better I can and will be prepared, which will allow me to work faster and better. Financially speaking, since Odradek is a non-profit label, we have to keep the cost within a reasonable range. But generally speaking, we are willing to pay a bit of rent if the location is worth it. If you don't have personal connections yet to a location, I can also be in touch with them, as sometimes it is easier if we approach them from the label side rather than the artist side. In some cases, we even manage to arrange deals, like arranging a concert for the artist in return for the permission to film on location. If you'd be interested in such a solution, that always helps. Last but not least, it has to be said that certain locations just look great, while others obviously don't. This should be rather obvious, but remember it nevertheless. A CD production is a big investment, financially and artistically for a musician. So every aspect of it should be special. Don't settle for your local football club's cantina. Go above and beyond and make sure we have a location to match your music. To summarize, I am very willing to travel through big parts of Europe for a great location, but we expect you to show the same level of willingness if need be. The location can be big or small, classic or modern, but it has to fit the story you want to tell. It also needs to fulfill certain requirements, like for instance, having a piano in it, if we need one for your story. Lighting of the location is very important. While you don't have to know a ton about it, there are some basics that I explained above that are worth keeping in mind when location scouting. Locations with fixed lighting installations and maybe even somebody to handle them are usually a good starting point. Also, think of the season in which we will be filming. Location scouting in general is very important too. And if you do so, make sure to make photos that don't just present the room from a public's perspective, but photos that show some of the technical aspects that I need to know about and that I described above, like the lighting, the accessibility, etc. Inner city locations might look tempting from a public transport perspective, but can be a nightmare when it comes to driving there and finding a place to park. I will bring a car full of equipment to the location, and I will need a place to leave it somewhere for a whole day. Financially, we can pay some rent, but we prefer to find other deals, like arranging a concert for the artist in exchange for a filming permission. We need a whole day to work, 8 hours or more. If your story is worked out well enough and deserves a second day, we might even do that, but don't expect anything less than a full day dedicated to the video shoot. Location scouting is a very wide field, but it can be very inspiring too. Sometimes you find the right location and it suddenly inspires your story in a way that you didn't think of before. Plus, sometimes a great location can be hard to reach and takes a long travel, but it can be almost for free and will make your video look as fantastic as it deserves to be. So don't be lazy about looking for the right location, and don't worry, if it's worth it, no matter how difficult it might be, I'll try to make it happen somehow. Next up, I'm going to talk about different forms of spoken statements or interviews. So see you then.